As a Death Battle content creator who was kind of well known for his criticism of Death Battle's overuse of Marvel and DC back in Season 7, to the point of the Hulk vs. Brawler reveal being the worst fucking day of my goddamn life thanks to the community, I thought it would be a fun little thought experiment. That's not what this is. A fun little challenge to try and create a full 20 episode season of Death Battle using nothing but Marvel vs. DC matchups that I actually like. There's a lot of them out there, but I'm not really a fan of most of them. And I know I made that one video that one time, but my opinions have sort of changed, as opinions do, so not everything from there will be present here. I don't like all the matchups that I included there, but as you can clearly see, there are now more than 7 that I like. To start, here are a few that I considered, but just didn't feel like putting on. Red She-Hulk vs. Bleeze is not terribly thematic, but I do prefer it to She-Hulk's matchups, outside of maybe Harvey Birdman, because that sounds hilarious to me, and Atrocitus vs. Red Hulk, which just sounds kind of ineptly lame. Unfortunately, I already have a couple Lantern fights on this, and Bleeze doesn't bring anything unique like the other Lanterns that I chose did, and I really don't need to hear Wiz talking about Bleeze's backstory, because that's the one part about her I don't like. Sinestro vs. Nightmare I also considered, but the only actual thing I like about it is how Nightmare also creates constructs that feel like Sinestro, while Sinestro's other matchups don't do that. And if Parallax Sinestro really is standard, it might even be slightly debatable, but aside from that, there's really nothing going on with it. Mr. Freeze vs. Dr. Octopus I also considered, but I don't really know how that would work as like an actual fight, so yeah. Dormammu vs. Trigon was actually on here for a while, but I did replace with something more memey and silly because I don't find Dormammu Trigon that interesting, and I feel like it has, honestly, in terms of just an episode, I feel like it has finale potential, and my finale choice I just prefer. So I went with the memey and silly one because I felt like that would be better than a Dormammu Trigon episode that doesn't live up to its potential. Vision vs. Red Tornado was also one I considered for a second, but I don't really care about that much, and it doesn't seem like it's an interesting matchup beyond... No, there's nothing interesting about it, it's just a flying brick fight. I just considered it for a second. If there's a matchup not on this list or mentioned here, then there's a very, very low likelihood that I forgot about it, and a very high likelihood that I simply don't give a toss. Here are a list of some random matchups on screen that I don't like or just don't care about. I'll let you decide whether these ones individually are ones I don't like or don't care about. It's up to you. These just are not ones that I really considered. Alright, let's get going. Episode 1, our big premiere, Ego vs. Mogo, in 3D. This is probably coming from a place of just bias, but this would be my ideal premiere for this hypothetical season. And also, everyone and their mother knew that it would be on here, so I thought I'd get it here out of the way immediately. Ego vs. Mogo thematically is just a single sentence, but it's very strangely specific. A big sentient planet from a comic book. And yeah, I like it. I've explained it a few times before, but this is probably my most wanted Marvel vs. DC matchup currently. I think there's a lot of really unique stuff you could do, just given the shape of the combatants. They're big spheres. And having a battle where two worlds are firing at one another from a distance sounds cool, weaponizing each other's ecosystems as they battle, and just generally doing lantern things with Mogo. He's a lantern. I'd be really interested to see how they do it, and it really needs to be done in 3D, because I don't think it'd be as cool in Sprite. You can freely swap out in-house 3D with Blender for all I care, as long as it's one of them. Hand-drawn was also considered, but then most of the hand-drawn elements would just be people drawing backgrounds, which... No, that sounds like a lot of work to draw a mediocre-looking forest for the sake of one scene. And even then, the best hand-drawn episodes either have highly stylized backgrounds or just straight-up 3D backgrounds, so yeah. Anyway, that's all I have to say on this match. I've talked about it a lot, and I don't want to waste your time. Episode 2. In a lot of ways, Mysterio vs. Scarecrow isn't even each other's best matchup from the opposing series, but I don't care. Nobody gives a fuck about the other characters that make more sense, and these two have way more visual media to go off anyway than just comic book panels, which does make it more interesting to me, as you can take direct inspiration from their portrayals in other media for the purposes of the fight. And yes, ideally, I do this one in sprite animation. Though, I would also be open to multiple animation styles for a single animation, but maybe just in the form of a few really trippy 3D looking effects overlaid on the background, while the characters are represented as hand-drawn or as sprites. It'd add that element of unnatural feeling that comes from these two's powers amounting to being full of shit. Having effects that look trippy and cool, but also not really looking like they fit in the same world as the characters themselves, feels like it works, because, you know, the characters are real, but what's actually happening is not. I guess I really didn't explain the theme, but this one speaks for itself. It's an illusionary battle between two characters who fight by making you see what isn't there. Though with Mysterio, I believe it's a case of him creating the illusions, while Scarecrow makes you see your own fears with his toxin, which is a fun little difference that can be used to really make it clear who's creating what illusions. The illusions that are more horror-esque and terrifying would be Scarecrows, while the ones that are more generally trippy and grandiose are Mysterios. I guess the one problem would be figuring out how to get the toxin into Mysterio, given he wears the fishbowl on his head, but I'm sure they'd work it out. That's not up for me to come up with for them. Apparently this is also a debatable matchup, though most of the debate comes from whether or not it's debatable or whether Mysterio just whipping nays all the Scarecrow stuff. Honestly, I don't care. This sounds creative and unique, and that sort of creativity, or in the last matchup's case, weirdness, are what I'm looking for with the majority of these episodes that I've come up with here, as opposed to just mundane monotony of flying bricks flying at each other. Episode 3, Polka-Dot Man versus the Spot. What the fuck is this? Okay, so Polka-Dot Man and the Spot are villains who have circles on their bodies that give them abilities. That's the theme. It's so fucking stupid and I love it. I don't even know what to say. For animation, you got two guys with really stupid kits. Polka-Dot Man has a ton of weird gadgets and abilities he can pull off his suit, while the Spot can move around his spots to phase through attacks and throw punches from afar. It's such a weird dynamic and such a weird matchup, and honestly, it just sounds like it'd be a lot of fun for a beyond silly street tier fight with a comedic edge. Look, I genuinely don't know what to say. If anything, this almost seems more like a non-death battle idea than a regular death battle one. For episode 4, Super Adaptoid vs Amazo and Composite Superman vs Combo Man were both fighting for the Spot, and honestly it was a difficult one to choose. Composite Superman vs Combo Man has a more concrete selection of powers, a more wacky and unique choice in Combo Man for death battle, and probably a weird debate given the question of if Combo Man's parts are all directly scalable to the characters they come from. At the same time, however, Super Adaptoid and Amazo have more of a presence in general, with more media to go off of, and using certain versions of Amazo for inspiration, there's also a more concrete character in the matchup overall, as well as more debate. The downside though would be that we don't really know what they would give the characters until the episode, which does have the upside of making the episode harder to predict as well though. Do they give them nothing but their base models? Fucking hope not, that'd be lame. Or do they pick and choose? Do they go with their most consistent abilities? Or do they have to go balls deep and give them everything they've ever had? That would be the most fun option. And in a fight, this gives us Justice League vs Avengers in one battle with only two characters, without worrying about repeat characters or budgetary concerns, as these two can just have it with the powers of both super squads. After all, the theme is that they're both androids that are the enemies of the world's respective super squads who copy their abilities, and I think that works. You can do a lot of cool stuff. To my knowledge, the character's weaknesses can also be used. Super Adaptoid has a limited imagination or something and is unable to process a lot of information from multiple sources, which would go against Amazo's greater creativity and intelligence, while Amazo's difficulty with using more than one character's specific kit at a time can contrast with Adaptoid having access to everything at once. Also, you could give us a fight between fake Mjolnir and fake Thanagarian Mace. Ideally, the end of the fight would amount to the two deciding to steal each other's power, resulting in either an overload that basically factory resets them both, meaning we get a fight that just amounts to a fist clash, just slugging it out, or the possibility that the winner's superior and copy abilities overpower the opponent and they use the other guy's abilities and weapons to kill them. Say, Amazo killing Adaptoid with his own fake Mjolnir, or Adaptoid killing Amazo with his own fake Green Lantern ring. Actually, given Amazo's weakness that he can't use more than one character's power at a time, that sometimes he has, that Adaptoid never has as a weakness, if Amazo wins by taking Adaptoid's power, say by being creative and letting Adaptoid punch through him, which Adaptoid wouldn't expect, Amazo will be taking Adaptoid's power and overcoming his own weakness to win. Also, they can both become kaiju size, so that's fucking awesome. Episode 5. This is one of the biggest Amazon matchup I really like that I don't really think we necessarily need, but I would be okay with seeing. Wolverine vs Bigby Wolf from Fable. Now, Fable, it's not strictly mainline DC, but it is a creation of DC's Vertigo imprint. So, fuck you. I'm counting it because this is my list. To my knowledge, the main theme is that they're tragic, immortal, animalistic killing machines who coast along on their lonesome with their unkillable nature, while having generally similar personalities. And of all of Wolverine's options to come back, this feels like the one that actually has merit to it. Basically, any other Wolverine comeback would end up feeling like Diet Wolverine vs. Raiden, I'd imagine, or at least it would be primarily compared to it instead of being considered for its own merits. What Bigby gives, however, is a very different tone. Instead of looking at the silly, bombastic side of Wolverine like all of Wolvie's matchups, Bigby gets to go into the Logan side of the character. Ideally, the fight would be set up as a sort of bar brawl that starts due to their generally disagreeable personalities not matching well within the vicinity of one another. Logan would not be in his Wolverine suit, he'd be in his casual gear, and the fight would be a lot more violent, gritty, and gory as the two really get into each other's unkillability, ripping and tearing each other to shreds, but getting back up because neither can put down the other for the most part. All their teeth and claws are managing to just chip damage on the opponent. Giving it that more, I struggle to say it, but grounded, serious, and gritty vibe is what really stands out for this match. It gives us a match not for strictly a Wolverine fight, but a Logan fight. The difference between something like Batman and the Hellbat, for instance, it's a completely different vibe and tone. And given Wolverine's popularity, I could see him coming back, and his other options just don't appeal. Zora would end up feeling like discount Wolverine vs. Raiden has nothing unique to stand out, making it boring as shit. Shredder would just be lame as fuck. Freddy Krueger would be a waste of Freddy, and Vega can fight literally anyone else. Baraka is a better Vega opponent than Wolverine, not to mention the likes of Sweet Mask and Yuta. So yeah, I would totally include this for a Marvel vs. DC season, and I'd take it as an actual death battle if we're forced to have Wolverine come back, because this is the only matchup in general that applies to the more deeper character and elements of Wolverine that I personally like. That troubled past, the gritty, violent nature, yeah, I really like those parts of Wolverine. Wolverine being haha, silly, goofy action fighter takes a little bit away from him. It does strip him of what makes him unique amongst the X-Men. Not that I'm too terribly bothered by that. I'm not like terribly bothered by that at all, but this is just the most appealing way to go about him to me. Also, Bigby becomes a big fucking dog, so he's pretty cool. Number 6. This is almost as stupid as Polka-Dot Man vs. The Spot. Spider-Man vs. Adam West. This is literally just Batman vs. Spider-Man, but it's Adam West and Shinji Todo. I don't know what, you even do this as a fight given the mech. I don't know if it's debatable, it probably isn't. Man, I don't really know anything about this match except that I want it. This would have been my choice for live action if Leopardon didn't exist, by the way. Because I didn't expect them to do a giant mech in live action. Number 7. Howard the Duck vs. Detective Chimp. When it comes to matchups where you can give characters everything, I think Howard the Duck vs. Detective Chimp is my favorite. Not only do I genuinely quite like Howard the Duck just for what he is, but I also find Detective Chimp quite interesting. And I think it could be really fun, because Howard is such a silly and unusual character, while Detective Chimp is equally unusual and weird, but he's comedically serious in how he's taken. It's that fun contrast of one character who's self-aware of how dumb he is and one who's comedically too serious about it. But the best part here is how just absurd the choreography would get for this of all matchups. Howard has a fucking ultimate nullifier and Iron Man armor, while Detective Chimp has Dr. Fate's helmet and the Sword of Night or whatever. The fact that this match could go to a cosmic scale feels weirdly, fittingly absurd, and I also think the banter could be fun. I don't know what else I can do to sell it beyond, this is a Marvel vs. DC matchup that's more like a Disney vs. Warner. Oh fuck, that's what Marvel vs. DC is now, but. Number 8. For some reason, of all the Flying Brick Herald fights, this is the one that personally I think I like the most. Jim Hammond, the original Human Torch, versus Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern. I know a lot of people like Jay Garrick against Jim Hammond, but not only do I personally like Wizard for Jay Garrick more, I also feel like we've tapped the well with 3 separate DC speedster fights, even if Garrick is fucking awesome, while we haven't done that for Lanterns. The theme is what you think. These two are classic Golden Age incarnations of modern day popular heroes who are more known for working in teams than their original ever was, both of which are associated with fire as well. I know there's also the character of Fiery Mask that was once referred to as Marvel's Green Lantern, but no. I like this one for the vibe, giving us that old school Golden Age comic fun goofy He-Man vs. Lion-OS vibe, combined with the weird 60s, 70s science fiction style they could do when they go off into space. In terms of like actual animation, I don't know if it'd be that special. Hammond doesn't have any wacky powers or anything, while Alan, well, he is a Lantern, so he does have a lot. But I feel like this could turn into the comic book version of He-Man vs. Lion-O. I mean, He-Man vs. Lion-O is a fight that doesn't really have anything special in terms of abilities, but it has an insane vibe and style that carries the animation into being really unique and fun. And I just really like Alan Scott in general. He has this energy, this aura to him, while Jim, he looks cool. I don't really know why I like this matchup so much as it has that vibe for me that carries it into being really fun. Episode 9, Peter Park's car is a sentient Spider-Man who is a sentient car Spider-Man from a world where everything is like the Cars films. And Bam is the protagonist of the show Bat Wheels, which is about a sentient Batmobile. That's all I got for you. When it came to the mid-season finale, I thought I wanted something really big and climactic to end the first half with a bang, so I chose one of my 2 options for finale and put it here. Marquis of Death vs. Superboy Prime. I know a lot of people like Superboy Prime vs. Sentry or King Hyperion, but honestly, they sound kinda fucking boring to me. This matchup is one of people who lived from worlds where Marvel and DC comics were fictional, but got dragged into the comic worlds and turned into cosmic level threats due to their mental states. What stands out for me is the dialogue. At their cores, Marquis of Death is a cruel, sadistic bastard. He made Doom live out an entire perfect fantasy world over the course of 5 seconds, where Doom got everything he wanted, just so he could make Doom's following failure hurt even harder. While Superboy Prime is just an insecure man who really wants to be Superman, but doesn't deserve the title. And I think the characters is what carries this fight. In terms of animation, yeah, you've got a cosmic reality warper against a cosmic reality puncher, and I'd love to see them bouncing off one another, but my ideal vision for the fight would be one where the third act involves Marquis putting Superboy into this fake world, making Superboy think he wins. Yeah, he got everything he ever wanted. He killed the Marquis, he became recognized as Superman as he always wished, he lived a happy life. But during this illusion, Superboy realizes something. He looks into the mirror and he sees he didn't really earn it. He gets reminded of how hard his journey was, but how easy it ended up being at the end. And he realizes he's been duped. He realizes from pure experience what he was always told that he just couldn't understand. To be Superman, you need to earn it. And he didn't. He screams bloody murder, and he punches his way out of the illusion, scaring the Marquis with his raw power. Superboy would charge Marquis, who sends wave after wave of Marvel and DC Heralds, Skyfathers, and Abstracts, and Superboy Prime would charge through and fight all of them. Ideally, we get a shot of Superboy barely visible on screen, zooming out as the wave of heroes and villains approaching blocks out the light of the galaxy behind them. And Superboy barrels through them all. He tears them open, he burns them to cinders, he takes out heroes with the remains of their contemporaries, before he finally gets close enough to punch the Marquis. If Superboy wins, he comments about how this will make him Superman, and unleashes the retcon punch to wipe Marquis out in the cosmic explosion that he stands proud in. If Marquis wins though, Superboy is stopped just short and fired back on, wiped out in a quick display of power, only for the Marquis to stop and notice his hand is shaking. The Marquis realizes that he killed Superboy without really tormenting him there, because he was afraid. He was terrified. He knew that if he tried to play with Superboy the way he did earlier, or the way he did anyone else he would kill, he would have been the one to die. And that sort of thing is what I love about this match. The characterful interactions you could have. You have a man who wants to be Superboy versus a man who just wants to kill everything. And it's on a cosmic scale and can include countless cameos from other heroes. And villains. Anyone really the Marquis wants to throw a Superboy. The more I talk about the match, the more I want it, and the more I lament how Sentry is significantly more likely, and significantly lamer, because it just ended up being a flying brick battle that happens to be on a cosmic scale, instead of a unique battle between a reality warper and a brute force punch that focuses on the characters on a cosmic scale. Also, Superboy Prime and Marquis at death look awesome, and that's cool. Episode 11. I don't feel like Ant-Man vs. Atom is as much of a matchup I can explain any more than anyone else has. It has a lot of potential for usage of the environment, both when giant and when small. The characters are fun, you can get visually creative when they shrink lower and lower until they get into a battle of who can shrink the most, and the winner shrinks just smaller, goes inside the opponent, and then grows back into full size, bursting them. So instead of wasting your time, I'll just say, the reason this is the return from the mid-season break is because I think it'd be a cool choice, and it'd probably get people hyped up for the return of the season. Episode 12, this one's here is partially a joke, Doomsday vs. Mangog. It's a match that I memed a bit, and I think this is getting the in-house treatment because that sounds hilarious to me. That is all. Episode 13, Larfleeze vs. Annihilus. This is a weird case for me. There's no meme associated with this fight, it's a flying brick battle, and the characters are so overpowered you can't quantify them, but I really like Larfleeze, and Annihilus looks fucking cool. The thing for the most part here is deformed bug aliens with an orange cosmic weapon they use for their goal of owning everything because they want to as the living embodiments of greed. It's pretty decent, but not enough to carry the matchup, so what carries it? I think it really is just that I like Larfleeze a lot. There's something to be said for animation potential as well. You got two characters with a ton of stuff to do. In fact, Larfleeze might be a lantern, but Annihilus still managed to match him in terms of variety, giving us a lot of potential for cool orange lantern ring versus cosmic stick conflict, as well as importantly an awesome army battle between them that you could do as well. I have nothing to say, just support the match because it's cool. Episode 14. It's kind of the same thing, there's nothing especially unique or crazy with Black Adam vs. Apocalypse. It's just kind of fun and it has a DC character I really like. I guess there is something of a meme associated with it, but it's just one that's got nothing special, but I like it. Episode 15. Moon Knight vs. Azrael. I don't particularly give a damn about Moon Knight vs. Azrael, it's just sort of okay, but I needed a live action option, and of all the live action options, this was the best, not counting Spider-Man vs. Adam West, because Leopardon, but this gives us a unique melee weapon fight, at least I'd imagine one that's better than the childish stick clash we got with Nightwing vs. Daredevil. This is a clash between a sword and a staff, which is a big stick, and that sounds cool. And honestly, it's way better than Moon Knight fighting a returning Batman again. Plus, you can probably have some really cool shots with these characters' sort of styles. And Moon Knight's kind of weird. I'm very upset that all the cool Moon Knight panels are edits, though. That makes me sad. Episode 16, Juggernaut vs. Shaggy Man. This is a weird one to me, because it's not my preferred for Juggernaut. That would be Overlord from Transformers. But of his DC opponents, I feel like Shaggy Man fits him the best. It has the same unstoppable theming of Juggernaut vs. Doomsday without having to bring Doomsday back. And Shaggy Man is a really cool, obscure choice that I think would be awesome to see. He also predates Doomsday, which is weird to think. That's all I got. Episode 17, Magneto vs. Dr. Polaris. This is a matchup that I started to support as a joke, but then kind of actually started liking unironically. Its theming is not particularly strong, but I think it really is carried by animation potential and debate. The animation potential, of course, is quite high. These two are very powerful magnetism builders. I think you could do a lot with it, and I think it plays into Magneto's kit the best out of his options. The debate, though, is something else. I've seen such strong arguments for either side, and the two genuinely seem neck and neck. It'd be a rare case where I'm not entirely sure who'd win going into the episode, because I can see it going either way. And I like that. Aside from that, though, it is a lot like Annih vs. Apocalypse, and that doesn't really bring anything new to the table. For episode 18, we're approaching the end of the hypothetical season. I think it'd be nice for one last, simple, street tier fight. And of them, I do really like Sandman vs. Clayface. It just feels like these two play with each other really well. Much better than Sandman's other options play with him. There's obviously a lot of creative potential. They can mold their bodies into anything they really want, and you can do a lot with that, especially as they just recover from almost any blow delivered in the fight. So you can do a lot of just them getting smashed to bits and coming back. This is another one where I don't know much of a way to hype it up. I just think it's neat. Episode 19, the penultimate one, Doom Patrol vs. the Fantastic Four. This is a weird one, but I like weird ones. And of the team fights I had to choose, this is easily my favorite. The Fantastic Four are a group so intrinsically linked together that part of me feels it's almost wrong to have them separate, even if they have plenty of matches on their own. And of their opponents, Doom Patrol I like the most. Sure, Fantastic Four vs. Incredibles is cool, but I'd rather not a match where any individual member of the Fantastic Four could drop a shit in the wrong direction and wipe out the entire Incredibles franchise. Maybe the Doom Patrol also gets stomped, I don't know, I've not really seen them get scaled, but I just find it vibes much better to me, and includes a team that you rarely see talked about. And while it is a lot of characters, I think asking for a 4v4 is a much more reasonable request than something like Avengers vs. Justice League, where it's potentially 10 characters on either side. I don't necessarily know who the fourth member of the Doom Patrol would be. Like, obviously you'd have Robot Man, Elastigirl, and Negative Man, and you could argue Chief, but he can't really fight, so he'd just be there as like a bonus. So throw on someone like, I don't know, Crazy Jane or something. But yes, it's a penultimate episode because it feels fitting. Now let's look at the finale. The finale had a lot of options, but I didn't like most of them, and hell, even the match I did end up choosing is one that I go back and forth on if I like or not. It depends on my mood, because the match isn't really special to me, and the theming is kind of just what they look like and how cosmic they are. But here we go. Swamp Thing vs. Man Thing. This isn't a match I'm crazy on, but between this and Marquis vs. Superboy, which was the other option for finale, this one has the bigger draw to it with Swamp Thing as the most popular character of the four, and Man Thing has his own movie while Marquis and Superboy don't, so fuck it. However, thinking about it, this could be a really good episode if done right. In terms of the analysis, to my knowledge, there is a lot of really interesting facets to these characters that can be discussed and talked about, giving more to the analysis than just their versus stats, which of course you can still go into, and I think this would be the one chance to really talk about the Marvel and DC cosmology. And outside of versus discussion, I have personally always been interested in those cosmologies. I couldn't give a fuck about how they play into versus stats, but learning about how these worlds work is really interesting. There's a lot of creativity that goes into them. Swamp Thing being connected to the green and Man Thing to the nexus of all realities opens itself up to interesting topics to talk about. The animation, meanwhile, really I think it needs to be done in a finale to actually be done right. For a start, I like to say beginner in sprites because of my general idea of how it would go, but I also don't know if that'd be a good idea, because I do think the start should really play into the horror aspect of the characters. Starting with the two in a highly stylized hand-drawn segment as they first approach, with really heavy graphic novel vibes, kind of makes sense. But as the fight goes on, I wanted to get more cosmic. The characters change animation styles, not arbitrarily as they get hit like Saitama vs. Popeye, but as a visual representation of them ascending to higher dimensions. Maybe they start by changing to a different hand-drawn style, then they grow into SFM or Blender, then they grow into in-house 3D. Maybe part of their growing in sizes includes a stop-motion segment, maybe a sprite segment. Ideally, they're changing animation styles as they grow into different dimensions of existence, a way to visually represent the abstract concept of higher dimensions while actually making sense to look at. It'd be a really cool way to work the changing art styles into the story of the animation that fits characters that progressively get more and more abstract. Hell, I'd like to see a 3D Man Thing looming over a 2D Swamp Thing, or the other way around, to get across that growing into a higher dimensional space feeling. until Swamp Thing reaches out, his hand turning 3-dimensional as well, to catch whatever attack Man-Thing throws out. Apparently Man-Thing could also win by cutting off Swamp Thing's connection to the green, so a cool way in my head to do the death would be to have him do that, and have Swamp Thing fall back through all the animation styles and land back where they both started, giving us Swamp Thing in the start of the animation style, while Man-Thing remains in whatever style they end the fight in when he delivers his final attack. I also would love to see the psychedelic style of the Nexus of all realities made the most of for the fight. Sure, start it with the horror aspects, but have it go weird and early 70s cosmic styling midway, or even early in the fight, as they drag each other into the cosmic realms. There's just so much creative potential I can imagine for the matchup that I really would only think works as a finale. And for that reason, I'm certainly going to say that my ideal Marvel DC finale matchup in general is Swamp Thing vs. Man-Thing. Even if Man-Thing also has ultimate color. Oh, but how can I forget about Doomsday vs. Hulk Killer? Wow, look at this, and yes, those are their real fucking names, holy shit! This guy looks like Cyber Mecha Doomsday Evangelion, and this guy looks like Jiren's thumb. What a brilliant matchup. These two have a collective 6 comic appearances between one another. Wow! That's almost as many as Polka-Dot Man. Holy fuck! It's super debatable too. One guy destroyed the Eradicator, and the other ate Hulk's fist. Insane!